I'm basically, as Lord Eric already said, that my name is Rumana Hashim, but he hasn't mentioned why I'm here. Basically, I just quickly would like to address what I do. Is that I'm basically carrying out a research and a 4 years long doctoral research. It's not ending, but hopefully in a couple of months it will really be ending. And the research is about gender and armed conflict, and look at the forms of violence, including militarized as well as, just that the speaker has mentioned, that there is also violence by the Bengali settlers. And I particularly look at the gendered forms of the violence. It does not mean that, when I say gendered forms of violence, people start to assume that I'm looking at the violence against women. I basically look at both men and women and how they experience the violence differently. And particularly when I look at this, then always it comes up that the men are dying and women are getting raped. Although not very many of the news are coming out. But I was quite interested. So the reason I am here, as Jenny told me, that I should say something about my field work, that what was the experience after 7 years after the peace treaty. I will not say peace treaty, let's say CHG Accord, the contract was signed. And I presume that there is a somewhat peaceful environment for, at least for a researcher, and particularly having my very Bengali identity, Muslim Bengali woman, having all the rights as a citizen to move everywhere around the country. And I was, more importantly, actually, my research was funded by one of the EU countries. I went from Europe, so obviously I could not be seen as Indian spy. However, I just would like to give very briefly, as only 5 minutes I have been allocated, I'll very briefly tell one experience. Before I get there, as a researcher, as we are aware that we need some approval, so I took obviously my passport, all my identities, certificates and things, and then I wrote a formal application to the Ministry of State to inform them that they know that there is a researcher doing work. My field was certainly not the whole of the CHD, but only that Khagrachari and part of Rangamati, the affected areas. And because Khagrachari is particularly the area where the conflict is still heightened, insecurity, high in conflict, intra-ethnic violence, military violence, everything is there. So I must get there, otherwise how could I conduct my research? So I managed to get the permission with the help of my journalist friends and ministerial lobby. However, it was an approved trip by the government, means that the Democratic Civil Administration. When I went there, I actually stayed in the guest house in Khagrachari proper, which is very close to the district administrator's office. And also it was just opposite to the police super's office. Therefore, they both were very concerned. I met on the very day of my arrival in Khagrachari. I gave a visit to the additional district commissioner to aware him that I am here to do some research. Funnily enough, but not surprisingly, he did offer me, he did not say that I should quote him, but I have to, for my ethical references, that he told me there isn't any gender violence, so what kind of research you will do. However, we have begun our conversation with an argument, and I had to establish that there is a logic. Even if there isn't any gender violence, I would still like to get a chance to look around. And then he had to surrender without a very happy face, and then offered me very angry face, honestly. And I was seeing like a little girl coming from the urbanized, very privileged background, class-based feminist coming to argue against the truth. I didn't mind. I'm used to this. But what I mind is that they forced me to go through the military men, I would say this, because they offered me the micro and the driver who is a captain. And I did not understand how can I carry out field work being accompanied by the captain of the local camp. And people would be of course scared, and that happened. I came back without done any field work because both Bengalis and the indigenous people were just scared of me, thought I'm somewhat VIP there and military VIP. So I came back, then I was so upset, I managed again to get back in a couple of weeks. When I got back there, this time I haven't given any visit to anyone because I had the formal approval, and I suppose that is more than enough, especially in this paper-based world where you need a passport and visa. I'll finish in a minute. When I got there, obviously I did not inform. And the moment I got, well, that is another story. I actually went straight to Lakshmichari, which is actually the very UPDF controlled area and still very remote. The moment I got there, I got surrounded by more than 100 of police, 13 military men, led by the military zone commander there. And they forced me that I must go to the camp. It was all dark. It was very, very scary because Lakshmichari is the most remote area. They don't have electricity apart from the camp. And I was not really feeling comfortable. I refused and I refused and I refused. I was at the bazaar. I was not allowed to go to the bathroom. I was not allowed to have a glass of water. I was just told, you must come to the military camp first and then you will go where. And I went here because that's too long story. I had to leave the field as with incomplete data. That does not mean that I could not investigate the issue. I did investigate with whatever data I had, but I had to end for that time.
Okay,